Today's class 17 of Cadd 212 on Monday, March 12th. Today in class, we're going to do fun with Revit, or at least I think it's fun. Hopefully y'all do too. I noticed in some of the progress that people have turned in so far, not that many people turned in progress. So I want to give you all something a little bit lighter today. So we're going to go over interiors, renderings, and walkthroughs. Did we go over walkthroughs in the first half of the semester? I don't remember. So did we do this at all, y'all?
I don't think we did.
Thank you. Okay, I didn't think so either. I just wasn't sure. Sometimes everything starts to blur. Okay, so we're gonna run through all this today, and then on Wednesday we're going to go over advanced sites, and we're going to create a parking lot and all that stuff. So basically what we're doing right now is this is technically the last week of design development where we're working on everything, and then after this week, for the next 2 weeks before this is due, we're going to move into construction documents. Where we talk about how we're going to annotate the project and use some other kind of, and do schedules and things like that, and kind of move away from the design aspect of it. Obviously, you can still be working in that, but we're going to focus more on our construction documents in the next 2 weeks. So that being said, let's go ahead and start today. Today, we're going to review interiors. We're going to add an interior level on here. Basically how you do that is we're going to learn how to duplicate level 1. You're going to rename level 1 to interiors, and then in the new level 1 interiors, in actually level 1, we're going to turn off furniture using visibility graphics, and then we're going to add components to the new level 1. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to do renderings. Renderings are kind of fun. We're going to learn how to use regular renderings, a camera rendering, talk about lightings and interiors, and talk about walkthroughs. So kind of a fun class, I think. Kind of give you a break from the heavy lifting, and we'll get back to that on Wednesday. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. I'm going to be using this project today. So let's go ahead and just start with this one and then talk about interiors. There's a couple other things we want to talk about later on, but let's just go through today's class. So for our interiors plan, what we want to be doing is using this floor plan and add some interiors things to this space. On this one, I'm going to turn off a couple of things using my visibility graphics. I'm going to go to my annotation category over here. And I'm going to turn off my section views. And then dimensions are on as well. That should be it. All right, so we have a much cleaner look in this space now. So in order to use this as interior view, I need to duplicate it. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to do duplicate view and duplicate. And then I'm going to rename this level 1 interiors. And I'm going to jump back to my regular level 1. And with my visibility graphics, I'm going to turn off furniture systems. I may need to go back and turn more stuff off once I start adding things, but I think that should cover most of it. And why I did that is because when I add my interiors to this level 1, I don't want them populated in this level 1. So let's see how that works. So to create my interiors in this space, I also want to turn off my floor patterns because they're going to get distracting. So I'm going to go back to visibility graphics here. I'm going to turn off the floors so I have a nice clean workspace at this time. So for this, I'm just going to go to Architecture tab, Build Panel Components tool. And if I go to Load Family, and I go to the Furniture tab, I can start adding whatever I want to here. I'll just drop a couple of desks. You don't need to go hog wild on the interiors. I just want to see if you do them. And when we do our walkthrough, it makes your walkthrough a lot more interesting if you have furniture in place. So here we just have some desks. So I'd like you to do a little bit more than a few desks, but it's up to you how much you want to do it. You'll see how these kind of show up when we do the walkthrough. But interiors are pretty easy, but you do have to have an interiors sheet, an entire interior floor plan just for your first floor as part of your plans. Any questions about how to create interior furniture? Everything's laid out pretty nicely here. Just duplicate level 1, rename level 1, and just so. This one's pretty easy to do, but you do have to have an interiors plan. All right, let's talk about renderings next. More fun stuff. Do regular camera lightings and interiors. Jump back to Revit. Jump back to 3D. Just turn this stuff on. All right, so in order to do renderings, we're going to go to our View tab and the Presentation panel and the Render tool. So just to do a quick render, if you're in 3D, you want to like jump to something that looks like, you know, just a decent view of the property. Let's take something a little different at an angle like that and see what happens. And I'm just going to click on Render. When that happens, this new window pops up. All I need to do to render it is click on this button right here. But notice underneath here, we have quality settings. We have draft, medium, and high. You're at home, so you can take as much time to render this as you want, but you'll notice as you get into these larger models, the longer it'll take. So in order to decide if I like a view or not, I'm just going to hit a regular draft view and let that run through. All right, it says it's not responding. It does not want to work with us today. Ah, there we go. So let's see, just a regular draft view here. Let's see what the difference is if we bump that up to medium. Actually, let's do that. Let's if I wanted to keep this view, and I can keep as many as I want, I'm going to put Save to Project. I can rename it here. You can name it north, south, east, west view, or, you know, front view. It's whatever you want to name it. I'll let you, that be up to you. And let's change this to a medium render. You see how it takes just a little bit longer. And once these models get really big, it can take forever. Let's hit that save to project 2, and I'm just going to call this medium render. Here I can go back to show the model, and it'll go back to the actual model itself. So let's see what those 2 renders look like. Let me close this. Once you do a render, it automatically populates into your project browser. Let me go down to renderings. Here we have 3D view 1, draft render, and 2. So subtle differences. You can see it's just a little bit more defined here and in our facade. And once you get these up in there much larger, they look a lot more impressive. We'll do that. So that's just a quick regular render. We can jump back to 3D. Let's do a front view. So whatever this, it's kind of the equivalent of just taking a picture of the model and that's it. It's a static image. It doesn't change. If, you know, all the new stuff that we do today and we add to this, if when we go back to it, it will not have the new stuff added to it. It's just like taking a snapshot of it and then that's it. So you have to re-render every time you do another iteration. You don't have to, but you know, just know that this is a static picture and you do have to update it every time you add new stuff to it. All right, so let's just do one more regular render. On here, you can adjust. We'll do that next. Let's just do the regular render now. That's actually kind of a nice view. I like that one, especially with the shadows here. So you're going to have this incorporated into your final projects, a couple of regular renderings on your sheets for the final project. See how long this takes on medium. Oof. Let's save that. But there's also different ways that we can render something. It makes it a little bit more interesting. So let's come to a view. Let's actually do, I'm gonna go to my site plan. And I'm gonna go to my 3D view and just do the drop down. And there's also a camera way that we can render. It's just another way to take like a snapshot of it. So with this little camera icon, depending on where you want that view taken from, you just click here. And then when you do that, notice how we have these rays that come out from it. Well, the ray is going to give you the view of the entire what the snapshot's going to look like. So if I stopped here and I didn't drag my rays all the way through the house, I wouldn't even get a picture of the house. So you got to make sure that your rays extend to the point that you want them to. I always kind of just drag it through the model so I get the entire thing just in case I want that. And then you kind of get something that looks like this. I can open this field a little bit more. Makes things a little bit more interesting. And when I have my view open, I'm going to jump back to my view tab. And my render tool. And let's just hit a quick render. And we'll see how these two types of renderings differ. So notice right away that we have a different view. It's like we have the sky behind this one. It's definitely from a different angle that we could get from the other rendering. So it makes it a little bit more interesting. Notice the sky back here. There's ways that we can adjust that. So on here we have background. So I have a few clouds. If I wanted no clouds, so I wanted it to be very cloudy. Let's just see what it looks like with no clouds. So nice clear day. So you can adjust what the sky looks like as well. So you can do that here. I like the camera renderings a little bit more than the regular renderings just because it gives you a little bit more depth. And when you take these from a correct angle, it can look really cool. Both are useful. You'll need to do both for the midterm, for the final project. But just in general, I like this one a little bit better. We can save this to the project as well. Save to project. And this is also usually the view that's imported into Photoshop, where we can make this a little even more lifelike. And we just use this one typically because of the sky behind it. And once you have the sights in there, it looks really cool. So you can play with that. Any questions about this so far, y'all?
Can you adjust like the field of view whenever you're setting the camera angle?
When you're setting the camera angle, yeah. It depends on, let's see, let's jump to back to site plan. And when you say field of view, you mean the angle or which part?
Yeah, like could you change it to like a 60 or 70 degree angle or 35?
Well, it just depends on where you put it here. So you wouldn't actually have an exact angle. So I could really take a picture from anywhere on here. And I can also take it from like a level 1 view or a level 2 view or a level 3 view. So you're higher up. So if I took it from level 3, oops, gotta go back to it. Level 3, thank you. Camera. I took it from this angle. So I don't have an exact angle if it's 90 degrees or 0 degrees or 45 degrees. So it's not going to give me that exact view, but you can take the shot from however you want to. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And then you just click there and you just have to zoom out a little bit. But you notice since I took this from the 3rd floor, I've got like that higher viewpoint. Instead of like standing on the ground before, this is like you have a drone or something. And then we can go to view and do a quick render here. So I have like a higher angle here. All right, any other questions about this before we move on, y'all? Okay, cool. Next I want to do is move on to interior renderings. For interior renderings, we need to add some lighting to the interiors. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to level 1 ceiling plan. Here we can see that the ceiling plan's laid out. I'm going to start in Architecture tab, Build Panel, Component Tool, Load Family. And we're going to go to Lighting and do Architectural. If anybody's going to be taking my MEP class in the fall, we do this also. We do this in Revit as well, so it's kind of a cool addition. Here you can see the different kind of lightings that we can add. I'll let you kind of play with this, what you want to add. Let me just do a simple one first. Do something lame like a table lamp. Actually, I'm trying to add my table lamp to my ceiling view, which is not good. I'll need to jump back to level 1. Floor lamp. I'll just drop a couple of these in here. And I'm going to do a couple of renderings on here. Let me do a rendering in this room first. So I'm going to go back to my View tab and my camera tool. I'm going to take a picture from here out. So here we have my interiors with our desk. Let's turn on consistent color. You don't have to, I just like to see the interior with that. Jump back to render, I'll just do a draft render. So this is what it looks like when we don't have any, when we don't have our settings correct, or we don't have any lighting inside our room at all. It looks like it's just like pitch black. So there's ways that we can adjust that to make that look better. Notice over here under panel, under lightings, it has a scheme. It has exterior sun only. So I don't have any lighting in here. So I just have my exterior sun. So it's just this light that's coming through the window, which could be interesting at times. You can see the reflection of the desks and things. We can also change a couple of different things on here. So if we did sun and artificial on our exterior, let's see if that makes a difference. And I've noticed that the people who kind of play with this a little bit more and kind of adjust stuff and get their lighting done get some really interesting renderings. So it's just a matter of you getting in here and kind of playing with this to get the view that you want. But if you really add a lot to these interiors, you can get some interesting stuff. So we changed this to exterior. Remember, it's exterior. We don't have any artificial lights on the outside. So it doesn't look like there's any change between the views. Let's swap this out for interior sun only and see what the difference is. Notice that we still have the sky behind it. The sky is set to a few clouds, and you can see that through the window as well. If we had our site done, we would have a really interesting view here. So you can see we're looking a little bit better with just some of the stuff. So this is our interiors, our shot, and this is sun only, and we're starting to look a little bit better. The interiors renderings are really interesting, I think, just because you see the reflections from the desks and stuff like that. So let's do sun and artificial and see what happens there. But you can see the more you've added and changed for your interiors, the more interesting it's going to look, which is why I was trying to push y'all to do like your interiors a little bit more. Changing the floor plans, changing the paints, things like that. It's really going to personalize your work and make it a little bit more interesting. So we didn't see a big difference between these two because we don't technically have any interior lighting in here. And then finally, let's do artificial only in this space and see what happens. And at night with the lights off. So you can see how adding interior lighting does make a difference as you render some of these guys. So that's that one room. Let's jump back to that other room where I actually have the some lights in and see what difference that makes. There's not a lot of light in here. I just lamely put for these lamps, but let's just see what happens. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna go and take my camera and take a couple of shots here as well. Let's stand here at the doorway, take a picture this way. So here you can see our lamps. Stretch this out a little bit. I could have also rotated these so they like maybe faced over the desks or something. You can do that too. At this point, I'm going to go to the View tab and the Render tool. And let's just render, just do, that's sun only. Let's do, yeah, let's just do artificial only and see what happens. Oh, exterior sun only, that's what I left it on. So we don't have the lights turned on yet. Let's go ahead and turn the interior lights on. So let's, for interiors, we'll do sun and artificial and render. So we can see our lightings get a little bit brighter depending on how much lighting that we put in here. It's starting to look a little bit better. It's really dark over here. We want to add a few more lights over here. But you can see how just adding the different lighting and these different settings right here gets you some really interesting effects. I really like it. Let's add a couple more lights and then we can move on. And let's just see what happens if we add some ceiling lights. Close that. So I'm going to jump to level 1 ceiling plan, architecture tab, components tool, load family. I'll jump back to lighting. Let's see. If you click on these once, you get, sometimes they'll just give you the symbol. Sometimes you can actually have a piece where it looks like, let's see, looks like actual lighting. Otherwise, you'll just get a symbol. Let's just try this one. Okay, it's just saying that the element is not visible in this view. I'll jump back to regular level 1. So there they are. Let's take that same view from this way. Oh, I thought that was a ceiling light. That was useless. A couple of cans, a couple of canned lights. There we go, that's better. All right, so let's see what happens here. Oh man, come on. We've got our weird selection of lighting going on. You can see the two types of floor lamps we have, and here we can see our can lights up here. Let's do a nice render and see how bright we're going to be now. Oops. And let's do artificial only. Let's see what happens. So you can see, even though we added all this additional lighting, we're still having, it's still very dark in here, but it's definitely a lot brighter than it was before. So we definitely want to add more lights if we were just going to do an interior lights only, artificial lights only. Let's see what it looks like with interior sun and artificial. So you can see there's a lot of stuff that we can play with. So it is starting to brighten up a little bit as well. So lots of different options that you have on here, lots of different things that you can play with. Any questions about how to do interior renderings and use of lighting? Anybody?
Why does it seem like the second set of floor lamps you put in weren't really emitting that much light? Can you adjust how much light is associated with each lighting fixture?
These preset, I know it looks like these actually didn't turn on at all. For these right here, you can, and like when you get into more advanced Revit, you can actually create your own lighting. If you have started, we don't really talk about Revit City a lot, but if anybody started playing with Revit City, that's where you can go and you can like, people have actually built their own lighting and things. So there's ways that when you build your own stuff that you can incorporate that and you can change the adjustments of the lights. But these ones that are already kind of like pre-made, there's no way, they kind of come in preset. But if you actually get to a point where you're like want to build your own stuff, you can adjust the amount of lighting that it puts out.
Okay, actually, I think that kind of goes into my second question I have. Is there a way that you can go in and, like, whenever you get into the furniture and fixtures, if you want to have something that's not just in the basic library, so you can go and like make your own or download other
Yeah. If you work with different manufacturers, they have like a lot of their own Revit components, and they would have all that information kind of preset, and you could just drop in those components that you get from the different manufacturers. You can create your own. Notice that when we do a lot of this stuff, a lot of this stuff is associated with a family. So when you create an entire family, that's when you can, make really pretty much anything. You can make desks. I mean, it's almost to the level of inventor when you can create your own stuff. We just, obviously there's so much to learn in Revit. We don't talk about that in this class, but you can start your own. And then also, if you do dabble with Revit City at all, you can use some of the components that they have there and import those into your interiors for your lighting or desks or furniture, whatever you want to do for that as well. It does kind of bog down the your model a little bit, because some of them can be pretty involved, but it's just another option that you can play with.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Any other questions, y'all?
For instance, you have like the recessed lighting in this view so that you can see the render better. Will we have to put those like in all of our rooms or just where we want to render, like
Just where you
specific
want to
lights?
render. I do want a couple of, when you actually do this work, what I would suggest is have like on your first floor for your level 1 interiors, add interiors throughout the entire level 1. But for your actual interior lighting renderings, I'd only concentrate on lighting in one room, because that's a lot of lighting that you would have to lay out. So when you do a couple of interior renderings, just put your lighting in one room.
Okay.
Any other questions, y'all? Okay, and last thing we're going to do today is walkthroughs. Walkthroughs are pretty fun as well. For that one, I'm just going to jump to regular level 1. You can do walkthroughs on level 1, 2, or 3, depending on what level you obviously do it on. We're just going to do level 1 because we've already kind of like started to play with a little bit of stuff in here. So I'm going to do actually level 1 interiors. And once again, we're going to go to View tab, Create Panel, the 3D View tool, drop down, and go to Walkthrough. As it suggests, you're just kind of like going through the building. So we're just going to kind of start outside. And once again, we have our rays that give us the direction. And I just kind of click through. I mean, it doesn't matter how quickly you do that. It just kind of gives you a point. I'm going to go into this room. And you can go through walls. However you want to do your interiors. It can make a big passes through both. And once again, this is one of those things where you just want to kind of play with it to see how it works. And then once you get your pathway finished, you can hit Finish Walkthrough. Then you'll go to Edit Walkthrough and Open Walkthrough. At this point, you'll get something that looks like this. And notice on here for our frames, this is actually the last frame. So we're going to change that to 1. So now it's starting at the beginning. Let me change this to consistent color. Actually, let's do this one in realistic. Now I'm going to just click play and see what happens. So you can see the more that you've concentrated on working on your interiors, the more it'll differentiate itself from room to room as you go through the walkthroughs. And then we end up with that last scene as well. That was at 300 frames. You can change the number of total frames. If you do that at, say, 500, you'll make it a little bit slower so you can see things a little bit better. Let's hit OK. And play again. I notice we just kind of slow it up a little bit more. So you can adjust the speed on that. So we can see we have some of the walls that are painted in this one. And sometimes when you're doing your walkthroughs, you'll catch mistakes that you've made. I like that view. The curtain wall looked pretty cool. Sometimes something will show up and be like, oh, I see a gap in my walls or something like that. So you can see those mistakes there. But that's pretty much walkthroughs. And once you do those, they automatically save in your project browser as well. So all that's pretty fun stuff that we can play with. Change the viewport, the view screen here just by stretching that up as well. Looks really nice. So that's pretty much it for today's class. I want to go over a couple other things just on this project itself, because I did notice a couple of things that need some adjusting on here, and just kind of want to talk to y'all about that as well. But before we do that, any questions about what we learned today? Okay, most things I find that people just have to practice with the walkthroughs in order to make those work, but it's once you get the hang of it, they're pretty easy and they're kind of fun, especially when you can kind of take a look at your work from the interiors. So let me jump to 3D here. One thing I noticed on this project is that there is an attempt at a dormer here. I like the way this looks, but it's not technically a dormer, so you would not be able to use the dormer tool to create this. A couple of things that need to be adjusted on here. In order to make this work as an actual window, we need to connect these two roofs. When you have a roof like this, it's not going to connect using our connect roof tool. We have to do this kind of manually. So we'll just take this roof and these walls and connect them to the back, this back area right here. So I'm just going to go to edit footprint. Wait. I'm just going to bump this back so it at least gets incorporated into the building. I'll go to a side view. Say I need to pull it back a little bit more. Actually, let's do the walls first. That might help. I just want that set there. Now let's go back to this roof. Actually, let me change this to, there we go. Edit footprint. Still not enough. Okay, now I can see that my roof is actually firmly installed in this roof. Let's flip over to this other side over here. I got to fix this wall and make sure that is encapsulated as well. Let's click on that, make it active. I'm just going to drag it back. And we still need to cut an opening in this roof in order for us to see through this part right here. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Architecture tab, Opening Panel, but this time we're going to use a vertical, because technically this is not a dormer, but we can still cut an opening in here. So if you linger over that, it just cuts a vertical space. It's going to cut that space out in order to create that opening. So since this is not a dormer, we can't use this tool. It will not work. So let's use vertical and see what happens there. So click on vertical. I want to cut this space out here. And I'm going to switch to wireframe. Sometimes that can be a little confusing. And I switched to wireframe so I can see through where I want this opening cut. I want it cut right where my interior walls are. So I'm going to just draw that space. Put the chain on. Check mark. Let's see what happened. All right, so what happened, I did get a chance to cut that space, but it only cut this roof. It did not cut the second roof, so I need to go back and cut the second roof again now. So what I was suggested is make this roof first, and then cut the hole, and then add your standing seam metal roof, because now we have to go back and cut 2 holes. So let's cut this one again. So let's do that. Architecture tab, vertical tool. Now let's make sure we get the right roof this time. And let's redo that. Oops, not hidden lines. There we go. I'm just going to draw that same space. Working in hidden lines does get a little bit confusing. I'll jump to 3D and hope it worked. And it did. Nice. So now we can see what's going on in our interiors here. We actually have an opening. It looks pretty good, but we have some weird stuff going on. Notice that our ceilings are now intersecting our windows. So we've got kind of like a weird view over here. A couple of things that need to be adjusted. If we wanted to adjust that, I could grab that ceiling and see if I wanted to just offset that to 10 feet. Obviously, it's just that one ceiling, but it did correct that problem. So you can see that. So that's something that would need to be looked at throughout the project. Let's put that back. Let's zoom around to this other side over here. Here we can get a better view of how those ceilings are a little bit too low, especially over here in our curtain wall room. So I definitely adjust that again. And then finally, one other thing I saw over here that was a little off was we can still see like a gap in this wall. So in order to adjust that, let's go over that again. Oh, and one other thing too on this view that I noticed. Let's get the right angle. All right, so these stairs are not supported by the floor. We need to adjust the floor as well. So let's get a better angle at that. I've noticed a couple people had that. So let's try and get that so the correct view. So you can see here, here's where our stair ends and our floor ends. So we want to make sure that the floor is underneath the stairs to support that. So we can fix all that at kind of the same time. So let me jump to level 1. Actually, now I'm going to go to level 2. So Stairs are here, floor's here. So a couple of things we want to adjust on here as well. And then also you can see why that floor is showing through is here's the wall and here's the floor kind of protruding through, which is why it intersects there. So basically all I need to do to fix both of those problems is to come in, pick that floor and edit boundary. And I'm just going to change the shape of it. So a couple things I want to do. I want to move this over. So now that wall is there. I'm going to bring this back. No, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to do it this way. Just finish it up with the corner tool and hit my green check mark. Let's go to 3D and see what happened. So this is getting close. It's not, obviously that wall's not fixed yet, but it's getting closer. I pulled it back so you can see a bit more of a gap here as opposed to where it was almost protruding before. And now my floor, my stairs are actually supported by my floor. I probably could bring this back a little bit so it's more flush with this edge, but now they're actually being supported. And then finally, I just want to adjust this wall right here so it comes down and kind of covers this gap. So in order to do that, I'm going to select that wall. And I'm going to do edit profile. To have that same kind of way I can change the shape of that. And the only thing I'm going to do is just change that. And that there. That came down a little bit too much on there. Corner tool that closed. I'm going to move this back up. And hit my green check mark. It says my highlighted walls overlap, but that's okay. It's going to overlap, so it just kind of finishes up that space. So now they're joined a lot better. A little bit of overlap, but it works out okay. You can see that right there. If you just wanted to do that, get a close-up of that view. Let's go to View tab. I'm just going to render that and see what it looks like in draft view. So then there we go. A couple of things just solved in there. Nice rendering there. If we wanted to save it to the project, we could just save that. Just a couple adjustments in that one. For this up here, I would just kind of, I mean, it's not an open view. It's not a dormer view, so it's not cutting out this ceiling as well, so you can see through it. You'd actually have to adjust this space as well. There's different ways that you could do that. We won't go into that now at the moment. If you just wanted this open, I would put another floor up here just to kind of have this space as usable. But yeah, that we would have something that kind of looks like that. There's ways that you can work this into your design. Whoever project this is, think about that, how you can actually make this work, because we're just lighting the attic at this moment. It does look cool from the outside though. I do like the way that looks. So there's ways that can be adjusted a little bit to make that more functional, and then just finish adding that standing seam metal roof to this piece right here. So that's it for today. Any questions about what we went over today or anything else?
Just out of curiosity, what would be like the technical, what constitutes a dormer?
That's the, actually, if we wanted to add a dormer to this one, let's see, we have our correct dormer stuff. It's the, it actually has like the peak on it. So it's actually using a different type of function than that one where it's just kind of a clear story window, but it would actually just kind of be that typical dormer style that we created. So we wanted to add one here. We could go to dormer bottom. If I wanted to add one over here in the back, I could go to architecture tab. Let's just do wall tool. And pick out any, just use generic. Oh, I don't have a chain on, damn. So it's gonna look weird because then at this point, I'll just add a roof. Let's go to 3D, see what we're looking at. Something that looks really weird like that. Let's take this roof and move that to dormer top. We just hid that metal roof. So let's connect these two. Oops. It's gonna pull together nicely. So it's not just the, it's also the shape. Connect these. Let's pull those back. So now with the classic dormer shape, we can go ahead and actually create that dormer cutout. And then pick roof and wall edges. And we have that dormer in that space. So it has to do with the shape of the roof as well. This is a regular opening, technically a dormer opening. It has this classic roof shape to it. It just has to do with the shape of the roof at this moment, why you can't use those two different tools. This is actually just a rectangular opening. This is a classic opening with this shape right here. So it's going to try and do this, but it doesn't have that roof line to work off of, which is why you would use the vertical opening, which gives you, oops, just that shape as opposed to the dormer shape with that peak on it. See how you have that drop down there? That's just a regular rectangular opening where you have, technically it is a dormer itself where it's encapsulated in the roof, but it's the shape that is going to determine which opening that you use, the difference between a dormer opening with this classic dormer shape or a vertical shape. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like, are you saying that it is architecturally considered a dormer? It's just not recognizing it as it for the function of the tool, or
correct.
Like, I'm just wondering, is there like a difference between the roof line? Like, does that make it something different? Like, does it have a different name or something?
It's a different name that you use for the, it's a different tool that you use because the shape of the opening is different. So it's still technically a dormer itself because the way it protrudes through the roof like this. It's just that the opening to the tool that you create is different because it's creating like that peak tool. See, like that hole, that dormer tool is creating that classic dormer shape. This is still a dormer. It's just got a different opening in the roof that's going to give us that different shape, which is why it may be a little confusing because it's a different. They're both dormers, different opening tools to use to create that opening.
Okay, yeah, it just made me curious.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, they're both dormers. It does look very nice. It's just that you can't use that classic dormer tool, classic dormer opening to create that shape for that opening in the roof. Anything else, y'all? And it's also a way the roofs are connected here too. These two roofs aren't going to connect at this point using that other tool, just because of the type of roof, with it being a sloped shed roof. There's still a few idiosyncrasies in Revit at the moment. But yeah, that's what the difference is. But yeah, this is acceptable, but you just can't use that same tool, but you do have to use that vertical opening tool in order to create that space, that opening there. All right, unless there's any other questions, we'll go ahead and drop. I'll get everything posted. And then on Wednesday, we'll come back. We're going to do some advanced sites and start making our parking lot for this and kind of move forward from there. So continue working on your interiors, your personalization of this building, and I look forward to seeing your work. Any questions, just text me and I'll be happy to help. All right, so y'all have a great day and I will see you Wednesday.